Good afternoon. My name is Tumi Tladi and welcome to my YouTube channel. Let's get down to business, shall we? Well, before we do that, let's talk about this document. So I'm still continuing doing a series on version control. The next mini series is going to be on web API, targeting both .NET Framework and .NET Core. Stay tuned for that one. And then probably finally, we're going to do a major series that's going to focus on Xamarin, how I build my mobile application, particularly targeting Android, and what are the future plans for iOS. So right now, I believe in our previous video, we were covering commit messages and merge changes. So we should mark this as done. There we go. So today we are on video number 14. For this particular series, which is going to be locals versus remotes. So here we're talking about the local branches and then remote branches, but also how do you push your changes, your commits to both cloud platforms, which is GitHub and Azure DevOps. So we're going to see how do we configure the remotes. Okay, so now let's go to Visual Studio. I already have the main system, which is identical docs. It's currently on master branch. And as we click at this get changes tab, you would see that by default, the tab, internal tab, it's going to be on the locals. And then they're going to show that you can also, well, here it is. There we go. So, well, when you click at the branches, it shows that these are the local branches. But you also have the ability to see the remote branches, assuming that you have already configured them up, which is in this case, you can see that I have 2 remotes, but the 3 branches in total. So Azure DevOps is a remote cloud platform, and then GitHub is another remote cloud platform. But on GitHub, I have access to 2 branches, and on Azure DevOps, I have only access to master branch. So the question is, how did I name this to be GitHub? How did I name this to be Azure DevOps? How does it know that when I click this button, push, by default, it's going to GitHub? And then when I go to additional operations and then say push to Azure DevOps, is going to Azure DevOps. How does it know all of that? Well, the secret is manage remotes. So let's wait for a dialog to pop up. There we go. So this is how they are. So why is that when you click this button push, it instantly goes to GitHub? It's not about the order of this. It's because GitHub became the first cloud platform that I utilized to push code to. So then I only added Azure DevOps at a later stage. Okay, cool. So, but how do you do this? What you do is that you add, when you click the button add remote, then you give it a name and then you provide the URL for both fresh and push. So let's go and do that on our newly created repository we're busy with previously. So let's go to Solution Explorer. Let's close this one. Close solution. Let's give it a second to unload all the projects. And let's look for YouTube_private_new solution. It's a project we've been working on. And then now, while this is loading, so, and then next time I'm gonna provide, or on our next video, I'm gonna focus on push. What happens when you actually push? Like what really happens? So we're gonna learn a lot about push, and then what are the rules? Well, my own rules, you know, on this topic of push. When do you push? From which branch do you push? From which or to which remote do you push? So there's a very heavy topic about pushing, and then because pushing might create conflicts where you're gonna have to fetch first, pull, you know, stuff like that. So we'll talk about pushing afterwards, but for now we need to focus on locals versus remotes. Okay, so while this continues to load, assuming that Visual Studio is not gonna freeze because it has a funny habit of freezing. Let me quickly go to Firefox, fire both the GitHub and now Azure DevOps. Okay. So our solution has loaded, our repository has loaded. And now what we need to do to configure that, we need to go to Git changes because it's the shortest way of getting to remote, managing the remote. Let's go to additional operations and let's go to manage remote. Let's see what we have. You see, by default, the name is origin, which is GitHub, because remember that's when we pushed, when we create a repository and push into GitHub. So it takes the name of by default origin. I don't know why Git as a version control system uses the name origin, but this is why I get to change it to say, let's edit this remote, only the name. Don't tamper with the URLs. There we go, GitHub. And then don't do anything else. Do not do anything else. Just hit save. Okay. What happened to my changes? Let's give this guy. Oh, there we go. So now we have this remote being renamed from origin now to GitHub. So this, it simply means that if I click this button, this arrow icon, that's push. We'll cover this in the next video, but it simply means that by default it's going to GitHub. So let's set up another one. Visual Studio, it needs to, yeah, it needs to restore some packages. I hope it's done now. So let's go again, manage remote. So how do we add Azure DevOps? Good question. So we're going to click add. Let's give the name Azure DevOps. There we go. So now we are waiting for the URLs. So where do we get the URLs? There we go. So let's go back to now Tumi Tladi. Oh, by the way, when it comes to the URL for GitHub, this is where it's coming, just to remind you. Let's go to our repositories. And then YouTube private new. When you click get code, this is the URL that you need. This URL, it needs to be HTTPS. That's what we use to talk to GitHub. So what about Azure DevOps? So we have YouTube private new. Let's go to repositories. And then you see there's no code that has been pushed yet. So we'll cover this tomorrow, that how do we push to this guy. Okay, so don't do anything when the repository is new. Just click this, it needs to be HTTP, and then just click this icon to copy the URL to clipboard. So copy it. And then going back to Visual Studio, and then I'm gonna hit paste. Don't change anything, don't add additional line, don't do anything. Save. And then it says remote name is not valid. This is surprising. Oh, it's not the URL, it's a name, so it doesn't like spaces. Okay, save. And now we have Azure DevOps. There we go. So then it will know that now we can push to both GitHub and Azure DevOps as our remotes. You see now when you can push to GitHub and Azure DevOps, you can refresh, you can pull, you can do all these things. Okay, so in a nutshell, that's what we need to cover today, because in my previous videos, I did show that you can push both to GitHub and Azure DevOps. So there's been some very interesting curiosity as to how do you set up Azure DevOps. So well, today now you know. So tomorrow, when the next video we're gonna be doing, which is push, focusing on the topic of push, you're gonna see that this guy, it's empty, and then all of a sudden it's gonna have some code, the same code that we have here. All these projects is gonna have 12 commits. That's something that's gonna be very interesting. How does it know? So we'll talk about that. So for now, I think we are done and we are through, and I will continue to sort out this list as we continue to add more videos to focus on. But for now, we are done. Just know that this is very important, that you can push both through GitHub and Azure DevOps. With that being said, stay tuned for the next video. And please like, share, comment, subscribe.